Welcome back, everyone. Imagine you're driving through a winding forest. It's dark and it's really hard to see what's going on. Suddenly, a deer jumps out of the bush in front of your car. You apply the brakes and you frantically stop so that you don't hit the deer. How many times has this happened to you? Right? Or a person suddenly jumps out from the parking lot on the side of the road and you did not see them. Right? We want our cars to have the superpowers to be able to react before we can, and hopefully keep us much safer and keep the other agents on the road safe as well. In today's episode, we will demystify how we can identify objects and figure out and demystify this whole philosophy. So, welcome to the world of features. Nature is filled with patterns. We see patterns everywhere, from sunflowers to cars to deers and so on. The question is, how can we make a computer vision algorithm or a method to detect these patterns? What's the language we are going to use to tell the computer what is the pattern we are looking for? Let's dive right in. Before we get into that, as I alluded to before, we want to detect patterns because the world is surrounded by patterns, and detecting these patterns helps us understand and estimate what the other agents might do and how we should react to them, especially in safety critical and mission critical scenarios such as driving. Right? Let's look at the simple example. Imagine you're driving through the winding road and you see a bunch of deers, right? You slow down, and in this particular case, it's a self-driving car. It does not detect the deer until it's too late. Hopefully, in the future, we build modalities which can actually do this much better than we can, so that it can keep us safe and keep the other agents safe on the road. The question is, if you were to tell a vision algorithm, this is what a deer looks like. Hey, please slow down when you see something like this. The question is, what makes a deer look like one? You can look at the deer like this and you can say, hey, it has a slender body on the side, it has a bunch of horns, has a snout and so on. But if you look at the deer from another angle, it looks completely different, right? Maybe in this case, you can be like, hey, the colors are similar, so I can use something like the color, right? But what about now? If you see a deer from the front, the color looks very different, right? It's not orangish anymore or duskish anymore, it's more whitish. So the appearance changes quite significantly with the way it looks. You could also see the deer from the back end, where it looks very different from the other views we have been seeing. The question now becomes, what are the features we are going to use to describe our deer to these algorithms? So you might say that, hey, I only care about the face of the deer, so I'm going to look at maybe the eyes, the nose, and the ears. If it has these particular set of features, this is good. But remember that we saw the views wherein we could not detect the face of the deer, like from the back. So in that case, you might be like, hey, I'm going to look at like 4 distinct legs. The deer legs are pretty unique in nature and they look in a particular way. If I can detect any of these scenarios, I should be able to call it a deer, right? That could be one plausible solution. But the question is that enough, right? Let me paraphrase this question for you. Okay, let's say we have a perfect detector. We can detect the ears, eyes, and the snout of the deer. So the question is, now in this particular image on the right hand side, our detection method has detected the same eyes, it has detected the same snout, it has detected the same set of ears. The question is this enough? Is this a deer? According to our initial hypothesis, this should be a deer, correct? I want you to pause the video for a second and think, if this is enough for us to call a deer, will this ever happen? Right? The answer is no, this is not enough, because remember that none of our computer vision algorithms are going to be ever perfectly 100% accurate. So you might see a lot of false detections, especially in things like low light, where it's actually really hard to see. You might detect some parts of the eyes or the ears or the snout. It might really be like hard for us to decipher what's going on. What we also need to do is look at the relative locations and positions of these entities, right? So we know that the ears are at a approximately particular distance, the eyes are at a particular approximate distance, and the nose to the ear ratio, and so on and so forth. So we care about the relative placement of these items. So, and this is what the deer would look like if we start hallucinating. The first example of what we just looked at is called the appearance-based features. Of course, we want to build models which are robust to be able to detect these appearance-based features depending on different kinds of backgrounds. In this particular case, it's a grassy background. On the right-hand side, it could be that there is another deer where it's behind this first deer, right? And it might be really hard for us to see, but we should be able to detect that. And the second kind of features we talked about are called geometric features. Geometric features give you the relative relationship between the detected entities. The appearance-based features only talk about how something looks. I think, so the question now becomes, which do we use? Which is important? The answer is, it depends. In certain cases, you can get away with appearance-based features if nothing in the environment would look something like that, right? So for example, when we do detection of the QR code to scan a barcode or something like that, it's a very unique feature. Most likely in the wild, you're not going to see something like that. So it's okay to use something like an appearance-based features, right? But if it's something like a natural living being, you might see certain other factors which might look exactly like that. So you want to use a combination of the appearance-based features and the geometric-based features. Great. So let's look at another example which is more closer to what you would see every single day. The deer example might be like a little too rare. You might say, I don't live in an area where I see deers, or I don't drive at night. It's not that big of a deal for me. I don't really care. But this is a kind of scenario you would probably see every single day, wherein if you're driving and you see these like traffic cylinders or traffic cones for construction, or like there's a safety vehicle on the side of the road, you definitely don't want to hit something like this, right? So your self-driving car or your autonomous algorithm also has to take this into account and sort of figure it out on the way, right? Let's look at how we can build a system like that. So let's say we have a traffic cylinder. Let's exercise the example we just talked about, the appearance and the geometric features in this case. So the question is, what appearance features will you use here? Pause the video for a second, write your answer down, and then come back. You might say, hey, like I know that this is orange in color, which is pretty rare, unless you're in the fall region in the world. So I'm going to look for orange stripes, and I know that alternatively there also there's white stripes, so I can also look for white stripes. Great. These could be your appearance-based features where you look for these orange and white stripes. The question is now, what geometric features would you use here? The geometric features are more about the relative placement. Again, just to recap, orange, you can say that, hey, I know that there's an orange stripe on the bottom and the top, and there are two white stripes in the middle. And we can also say that cylinder curves are always vertical. Cars generally do not topple these often. So maybe that's another proxy we can use here, right? And we know that the size of the traffic cylinder is pretty much fixed. So we can take the aspect ratio and it should work irrespective of what the orientation is. And we can say that it's constant. Right? To detect how to get this orange stripe, we have talked about a video on color thresholding, which is going to be linked on the top here. Please go watch this, and we have a nice beautiful video on making custom color spaces and stuff like that on how to detect these colors. And you can implement your own sort of like orange barrel detector for a self-driving car. In today's day and era, we of course will probably do this with a deep learning network, but if you have a robot which does not have a lot of computation, this is still a very valuable asset and a tool for us to be able to do this stuff. So with this video, you should know what are features and why do we need them, and you should know what are the kinds of features. You should know when to use which kind of feature, and so on. See you next time. Take care. Bye.